It's only thieves who would behave in the manner Zakayo is behaving in. And that is why I keep on saying that we must call him out, because Zakayo looks for any opportunity for him to steal and plunder our resources. And that's why I keep on saying that Zakayo steals all the times, and all the time Zakayo steals. And we must stop him. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take. We must stop Zakayo. So as I pen off and as I land, the office of the Attorney General is just a flower girl office. It does not have the power to do anything. Zakayo is not one of those guys that you can advise. Zakayo can only be advised by making sure that he retires as early as now in Sugoi. To begin with, I find myself where this country was during the time of Moi, when the Indians were the only persons who would rule and who would perhaps maneuver shoddy business deals in Nairobi and elsewhere. We are back to the times of the Kamlesh Patni. We are back to the times of the guy for this Indian who was the guy for the oil guy. We are back there, and I agree, even before I go to the legal content, with the sentiments that were aired by that member of parliament. Today, when we look at Indians, we look at them with like an eye of contempt, like they are coming to take over what belongs to us. And not because you have anything against the Indians. The only thing that we have is that we have not been involved as a people to determine how our affairs must be ran. The reason why we shall have this backlash and bad blood arising and cropping is because Zakayo has decided to deal with this country like his chicken poultry farm. He's dealing with us like the way he deals with his chicken farms, the way he deals with his cows. That's how he's dealing with us. That even on a sensitive issue like the takeover of the airport, he disregards us. He looks at us with a lot of contempt, ridicule, dislike. And atuonanga sisi ni mafala tu hivi, yani we don't even need to be consulted. When you look at the Public-Private Partnership Act, it is not an act that's supposed to act independently from the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. Public-Private Partnership Act, which was enacted in 2021, is a complement act to the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, where it was intended to ensure that it can promote expeditious growth, where government is not able to inject capital. They're able to get perhaps equity partners or any other strategic partner into the project that the government is undertaking. But it was never meant to introduce a scenario where Mr. William Ruto is able to get into private shoddy deals outside the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. For example, before this was done, any assets that belongs to government that you want to privatize, and remember there was also a privatization bill that was stayed by the court. The procedure is that you must first of all have the expression of interest, so that you float this expression of interest either locally or internationally, so that anybody who is interested in participating in that particular process is informed and expresses his interest. That procurement of public services or disposal of public goods or services cannot be done outside the Public Procurement and Disposal Act. And that is a tragedy that this country has found itself in. The privatization bill that is now pending before court is a conduit towards pillaging the resources of this country, stealing the resources of this country, and making sure that they take over strategic institutions in this country. And that is why we must come out and fight this kind of conduct. And the problem first of all began in Parliament. That when Parliament legislated the Privatization Act, they made it clear that Parliament has no role in determining how privatization will be done, to whom that project or to whom that or institution or to whom that department or of government will be privatized to, who will take it, how will the acquisition be done. Parliament, which is a representative of the people, is not supposed to have any concern or any interest in it. The biggest insult is whereby he decided to sell for a period of 30 years without involving Kenyans. We have been trying to get hold of these documents. We cannot get them anywhere. Yesterday we wrote to the cabinet secretary in charge, asking him to give us all these documents under Article 35 of the Constitution, access to information. Because without proper foundation, we are not able to challenge this case in court, because that is where we are headed. So we gave him 7 days for him to provide the documents, to which I think he will not provide, because he has not shown any interest even before, before. But it doesn't matter whether he gives us these documents or he doesn't give us these documents. We are headed to court. But even as we go to court, we must have some own self-eternal vigilance that we are going to employ to rescue this country from being from the hands of these hungry vultures. One of the internal vigilance that we must use is that we must consistently keep on reminding Zakayo that the street is not far away from us. That is one of the self-help remedy that we must resort to. The streets must not be very, very far away from us. Because remember, the courts move very slowly. The intervention takes time, but the streets are with us. So we cannot just wait one institution to deal with this case when we still have the institution of the street. And the street must be seen as an institution, as an alternative institution. Because the streets have been constitutionalized in this country by Article 37 of the Constitution. Article 37 has given us the alternative institutions that we can resort to when these other institutions have failed us. So the street must not be seen just like a mere street. It is an institution that has been created by the Constitution to help the people exercise their residual powers when these other organs and institutions have failed us. So even as we wait for the courts, the street, which is a constitutional institution, must be an available alternative remedy for us to rescue ourselves from Zakayo. Zakayo must never have peace in this country. And Zakayo must be reminded, anytime you get an opportunity, that his days are numbered. That he's not going to silence us in whatsoever manner, through either the guns or the barrels of the guns, neither the water cannons, neither the tear gas, neither the abduction that is going to help to silence us. Because if we do not hit the streets in rescue of this country, who will? As I sum up and as I land, remember the story of the Good Samaritan. The Pharisees who are there, they saw the guy sleeping on the floor and never touched him. The teachers of the law were there. They were so busy to go to the synagogue and pray. But there in came a simple person, the Samaritan, and he asked himself, if I do not stop to help this man, who will? That is the situation where we find ourselves in this country. If we do not rise up and rescue this country, who will rescue this country? We must be like Nehemiah, and I'm going to become a bit biblical. We must go round the walls of Jerusalem until we bring them down. The walls of dictatorship in this country must be brought down. The walls of unaccountability must be brought down. The walls of tyranny must be brought down. The walls of contempt to our constitution and the people of Kenya must be brought down. The walls of contempt of our sovereignty must be brought down. And remember, Nehemiah went to the streets of Jerusalem. And therefore the street is not just a constitutional street, but also a biblical street that we must also hit and rescue ourselves. Because Zakayo is holding us hostage. He's attempting to silence us every time. And this is not a guy to joke around with. It doesn't matter how many of us are going to remain. But the fact is that we must remind him that this country is not his home. We are not his slaves. We are not going to bow down to him, and we must remind him that things must be done in the correct manner. The reason why people died when they were fighting for this constitution is because they wanted to have accountability and transparency in the manner in which things are done in this country. Even if we are not able to fight for many things in our constitution, let us fight for accountability. Even if we are not able to fight for many things in our constitution, let us fight for transparency. Let us fight for the observance of the rule of law. At least those are some of the tenets of the constitution that will bind this state. If we do not fight for those, this state will disintegrate and we shall have ourselves to blame. And remember, we are only focusing on one guy, Zakayo. Zakayo. He must never find any peace. The biggest failure is the failure of institutions, and they are not failing because we have chosen to. They are failing because Zakayo has designed that these institutions must fail. These are the institutions that we created to enhance accountability. These are the institutions we created to oversee due diligence. I just saw the other day that a team of 16 guys from the ministry were sent to India to go and do due diligence of these Adani guys after the fact, after the deal is done. That's when you are sending guys to go and do the due diligence. Due diligence should be the precursor to getting to any deal of this nature. We need to understand the financial health of this company. But we cannot understand the financial health when you've already entered into a contract. When you're actually at the final stages of God is owned by people who are not trustworthy or thugs or drug dealers or any person. How will you, after you've already signed the necessary legal instruments? They're opening us to unnecessary litigations. And before I spend off, Tony was asking about the question of international interventions. That is an available avenue. But remember, most of the instruments that regulate such kind of deals requires that we must exhaust the local remedies first. So even as we are waiting to exhaust the local remedies, we are not aware of what the agreement says. We do not even know the seat of arbitration in the event there is a dispute. Is the seat of arbitration in London? Is it in Kenya? Is it in India? Where? We are not aware because this information has been concealed. It's only thieves who would behave in the manner Zakayo is behaving in. And that is why I keep on saying that we must call him out, because Zakayo looks for any opportunity for him to steal and plunder our resources. And that's why I keep on saying that Zakayo steals all the times, and all the time Zakayo steals. And we must stop him. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take. We must stop Zakayo. So as I pen off and as I land, the office of the Attorney General is just a flower girl office. It does not have the power to do anything. Zakayo is not one of those guys that you can advise. Zakayo can only be advised by making sure that he retires as early as now in Sugoi. Compare Zakayo and what's happening with Ibrahim Traore. Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso is trying to regain back the territorial integrity of his country. He's chasing away the French companies dealing and stealing mines there. He's making sure that he has completely solidified and codified his sovereignty. In the alternative, Zakayo here back at home is selling our sovereignty. I have not heard that Traore is a PhD holder, but he understands what a sovereignty of the country means. Zakayo, on the other hand, is selling our sovereignty. So the biggest problem that we have is to deal with Zakayo, and we must commit ourselves to deal with him in all manners necessary. Let nobody tell us that if we bring chaos in this country, that the military will take over. Let them take over if they're going to defend the sovereignty of this country. The military took over in Burkina Faso. Today, Burkina Faso is thriving. The military took over in Mali. Today, Mali is able to consolidate itself. They took in Niger. Today, Niger is able to consolidate itself. So if the democratic avenue is not working, we must look for other alternative avenues that will help us fix the problem that we have. We may begin this journey today. Many of us may not get there, but the people, we as the people, must make sure that we get there at one particular point. So we must keep on saying that let nobody tell us that the only way of governance is through the democratic principles. If they are not working for us, why should we not fix them? It is this democracy that has brought a curse to this country, because I consider Zakayo a curse. How long should we cling to a path that yields results that are not desirable? Who are coming over and are interested with our properties. That is the first step that should have taken. The intervention takes time, but the streets are with us. So we cannot just wait one institution. He must never find any peace.
This government. Because what I'm seeing is,
and then subsequent to the formation of the tendering committees and the bids are evaluated, then that bid again is subsequently taken to Parliament for evaluation and approval. Remember, the airport is a strategic government institution. It's not just another institution that people can just take over without the involvement of the people. And then we also need to have been told, why are we going through the Public-Private Partnership Act and not the Public Procurement and Disposal Act? What is it that these guys are going to eject? We also needed to have some history of the persons who are taking our strategic institutions. Where has Adani previously engaged himself or itself in a similar business? And what was the reaction and what was the outcome of all this? The other question is, why 30 years? What was the justification for the 30 years? Who came up with the lease for 30 years? Subsequently, what are we leasing? Because I understand that we're even leasing the titles. We're even leasing. Because we cannot lease. We cannot give the title, because the moment you give the title, you have completely given the airport. No reason to say that this is our airport anymore. And why a lease? Why a lease? All those are the legal issues that we must bring up as and when we get the document, or even when we do not get them, we will still go to court and ask for them. Why should it be a lease? Is it a full transfer? Because if you look at the Private Partnership Act, it has two concepts. There is a build, own, and operate concept. Then there is a build, own, and operate and transfer concept. Which concept are we employing in these circumstances? Is it a build, own, and operate? Or is it a build, own, and transfer? We are not aware, because those are the only concept that exists in this legal regime of the Public-Private Partnership Act. You cannot have any other concept outside those two principles. So which one are we employing in these circumstances? Why are we not being told? Because when you say it's 30 years, we must be vigilant and utilize all the possible available avenues, including sabotaging the processes. Even sabotaging is constitutional, because it's a way of picketing. Picketing has not been defined as to what extent one can picket. Even sabotaging and making sure that things are hard. I'll pray to God that we get these court orders, so that we mobilize the whole of Kenya to go and help us serve these orders to this Adani, or whoever bothers to receive them, just as a means of demonstrating the discontentment that the people of Kenya have and with this regime.